healing the self-trust is multiple layers deep. It was inner child. I spent a whole year, I think even more than a year, working on my inner child, healing the relationships that I've had with myself and my mother. And again, like I always talk about this as being like peeling the onion. So the first layer, second layer, there's always so many layers
Mhm.
deep to the same issue. And I remember working on it for a long time. And yet there's still more to uncover, right?
Yeah.
Because
Or
there's the
peeling a
past life.
lotus flower.
Yes, it's like it's so many layers deep, right? But you're getting deeper and deeper and deeper to the root of the issue.
Hello, and welcome to the Liminal Frequencies podcast, where we dive deep into healing frequencies from our ancestors, frequencies of the earth and stars, sound, color, and light, and all of the subtle ways that we can tap into our unique vibration to awaken the highest timeline and integrate the fullest expression of our being. Now let's dive in. Hello and welcome back to our episode with Michelle, where we have been talking about our journeys through the Akashic records and through working with the energies, trusting our intuition, and dropping into the new realities that the universe is bringing us. And it is interesting as we talk a little bit more with Michelle, we get into the calling that she's had towards working with dragon medicine and answering that call, and how sometimes in our lives we feel this tickle in our throat, we feel an itching in our feet. We know that we're meant for something and we have something coming in to communicate with us. And so being able to surrender to that flow is so hard, especially when we get fixed in what our dreams are and what it's supposed to be. But when we can open up to those energies and those new frequencies, it is so rewarding. So, we're going to talk a little bit more in this episode about dragons, these beautiful, majestic beings that support us through our journey, that bring us the fire and the inspiration, the courage to keep fighting for what we believe in, but to do so with such beautiful, unconditional love. So, here it is, our episode with Michelle. So tell me about when your spiritual journey started.
Spiritual journey started a couple of years ago. I want to say maybe about 7 years ago. Right now, 7 to 6 years ago, and my spiritual journey started, and I think like most people can resonate with this because of a dark night of the soul.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in a place where like I was at my lowest, and I wanted to know answers. Like I'm somebody who's always looking for like answers to questions. I have a lot of questions and I want answers to them. And
Mm-hmm.
I started looking at all different places, not just conventional, conventional. By conventional I mean like medical, psychological, but also unconventional or alternative ways. And I've always been interested in like past life and a reincarnation and karma. And so that kind of drew me into like to get a reading. And so I had a reading done, and that was kind of like my first kind of like, oh, okay, this is interesting. This is like a, yeah, I think I can't remember if it was a tarot reading or whatever. Then I saw the word the Akashic records, and I had no idea what it was, except that there was something about it that kind of like drew me in.
Yeah, you remembered
And
it.
yes, and I was just like, this is really interesting. And then I found out that the Akashic records is like past life. It's that was my first introduction to it. Was like it's a memory, a soul records, and I was interested in understanding past life and past life relationships, right? And also why certain things happen and they're recurring, um, like a pattern, right, or a loop that why do I keep attracting a certain like situation? I wanted to know why. And so that led me down this path of yeah, of getting an Akashic Records reading. And the first one that I did was a past life regression, and that was my very first. I was like, I don't even know if I can see anything. What is this? But I was really intrigued with the information that came through. Um, and then that was like the rest was history. And then I was
Yeah.
online one
Do you want to
day.
share any of it, like that resonated with you or that helped you feel like you could receive a lot of healing?
You mean the past life regression that I did?
Yeah.
Yeah, the passive regression I did wasn't really a healing as much as it was like an awareness. I wanted to know, yeah, I wanted to know certain patterns as to why I was attracting a certain situation. I wanted to know my contract with certain people, and so I did it through the Akash because that was what it's like soul contracts is if you want to know your soul contracts, the Akashic Records is where you get the information.
Yeah.
And so that was what I did. But it wasn't really a healing as much as it was awareness. But that to me was a really healing because I was like, oh, it helped answer, like I had all these questions and it helped answer those questions. But then I decided to like dig deeper into it, and I came across many years later came across Amy Robeson, and so she offers Akashic Records. She teaches you how to access your own records, and that was what I wanted to do, was to learn how to access my own records. Again, I was like, I don't really know anything about the Akashic Records other than it is this like awesome, wonderful tool, and I just kept being drawn to it. And so I allow myself for the first time to just trust my instincts and intuition and just allow myself to be drawn to it. And then I would say like the rest is history. That really started my kind of the Akashic, like my awakening, because prior to that, I did not even know about Reiki. I didn't do Reiki. I didn't do any kind of energy healing, crystal healing, or chakra, none of that. I was just mostly drawn to the Akash. Just by the name itself, I was like, there's something there. And the strong connection to past lives. And then when I started doing the class, I actually got really afraid, and I was like, I don't think I can do that because there was so much healing that needed to be done. And so I didn't feel like I could access my records. I was really frustrated, and so I actually left the program. I quit the program. I didn't finish it, and I spent like about a year or so learning other things, like learning the foundations
Yeah.
of like trusting myself more, learning. And so I started all of that more, opening myself up to like spirituality in that way. And then I came back after
And
about a year.
how did you heal that self-trust? That's an interesting path
Yeah,
we go
it
on
was it
sometimes.
was working with different healers, like in mentorship programs. I was in a mentorship program where it was tailored to me, to learn to kind of like build up my intuition, because one of the things that I discovered was that I actually am clairvoyant. I see things a lot, but I just think I'm just daydreaming and making things up.
Yeah.
And so it was that trust. And so I worked with different mentors who basically, yeah, where to build my I wouldn't say, well, to remember my gifts because they were there. I just didn't trust it,
Mm-hmm.
and I was already receiving information. I just didn't trust that information that was. I just assumed that it was received like, like, oh, yeah, um, because yeah. And so
Did that happen to
working,
you like as a kid too, where you received information but you didn't know for sure?
I I'm fairly sure that I am fairly like intuitive, but it was not something that was kind of like encouraged. Like I remember, I would get a lot of like quote unquote downloads, right?
Yeah.
I see things a lot, and I remember my parents were just like, "Oh, you should not be daydreaming. You should just focus on like
Yeah.
your, yeah,
So it was
like
pretty
what's in front of you."
stifling for you to grow up in kind of this motivation to like go for the sciencey and the math sort of like energy, but not to trust your intuition and be artistic and feeling, right?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Oh, it just seems like it may have been kind of stifling for you growing up in that environment.
Yeah, I mean, yes, and I think that the soul, like my it was hard, and the spirituality helped me understand that. Like why did my soul decide to reincarnate in the culture or in a family that I chosen, right?
Yeah,
What was the reason for that? Because there's always a reason for why our soul decide to reincarnate to be with the people that we end up being, right? The family
yeah,
that we choose. And so that helped me a lot. Like the awareness, the insights from the Akash really helped me. And and I would say that I definitely am more creative. I like to create, and I didn't know that about myself until much later in my life, just
yeah.
because of exactly the environment
So you
that.
saw, like, did you see that you chose your parents or your family to overcome certain things or to like to grow your character in a certain way? What can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So I would say, I think in hindsight, like looking back, right, it was all related to me coming home to myself. Like it was a journey that I had to learn to come back home to who I am authentically. And right now, like I do that for other people, for my clients, but I couldn't have done that. And I won't be able to do the work that I do today if I had not walked that path.
Yeah.
And so in looking back at everything and also going into my Akash and finding out my soul purpose and my mission here, it make a lot of sense. Like I would not have in like 10 years ago. So when I was younger, right? Like when I was younger, like in my 20s, I always felt like I was here for something more than working a corporate job, chasing the corporate, all the status symbols that we were like the society tells us we should chase. I felt like there was something more. I just didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
And so then I was like, but I knew I was here for something. I just didn't know what.
Mm.
And then it took me like, yeah, like over like all the spiritual awakening, all the things that happened to me, and then choosing the path of healing because we all have a choice. And I chose to learn more and heal instead of going through this cycle of this loop, right? Of this negative pattern because I kept realizing there is the same pattern. There's this loop that just cannot, like, can't break this loop. And then I finally broke this loop through like with the choice that I decided to make, both like with conventional healing and both with alternative healing, like the Akash and energy work, that really helped me sort of like have a different perspective of why things happened to me, why I chose the family I was in and the path that I was in. Because again, it was about I had to learn to heal. I had to learn to let go of certain things. Um, and then to come home to who I was and to be clear about it, to be authentic about it. And it was all these journey. And so now when I look at that, I'm like, okay, I went through this process and I can now lead and help someone and guide someone through the same process and understand where they're coming from because I walked it. And then it was now in recent years through the Akash that I was like, oh, that was my purpose. Now it makes sense to me.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's like it's amazing when we need the perspective change, right? Like that's the thing about the Akash, or even people do this. Maybe they go on trips. Like when I fly, I'm always tapping into the Akash. Like I'm always getting downloads and that time just away from, or in the mountains, of course. Like that's so powerful. This time away from the constant downloads and the constant civilization and the chatter, like just takes you into this space where you really know where you're at and where you need to be. And yeah, I think it's powerful to intentionally tap into that space like on a regular basis so that we can have these lessons and these teachings like infused into our everyday lives.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think it gives us a different perspective. And the thing is that I can feel the big difference and the shift that happens when I am in and when I'm not in the Akash. Like in and out of it is very different. So I can have a really bad day, and I can feel really frustrated about, and just like my energy isn't good. But then once I open the Akash, like I open the Akash for a client meeting, or just for my own meditation. And then it's like the energy shifts instantly. It's just this
Yes.
lighter energy. I feel really good, and I'm like, oh wow, this is amazing. Yeah, I just
You
feel
feel
like
loved.
yes, and I felt like, and I feel like in the Akash, like feeling love, feeling embraced, feeling seen, but also, just the shift in perspective. I feel like whenever I'm in Akash, I in downloading from the Akash, the awareness that I get, the information that I get, it's always really empowering, but it's always from a place of healing, and I feel like it's very like I want to use the word enlightened, but it's an
Yeah,
enlightened perspective. Whereas if
exactly.
I'm not in the Akash, then I see things, I feel things with like I would say like our human perspective, and then all those fears come in, right? Because we are only human. But in the Akash, you see things from a really enlightened perspective, and I really like how that feels. Um, because in the Akash, then I feel no fear. I feel only love, compassion, hope, optimism,
Yeah,
and yeah, and then I bring that back into the 3D world and create a new reality in
yeah.
the 3D. Yeah. So it's yeah.
And so we're getting back on track. Like when you started your journey, you had to take a little break from the Akash to heal the self trust, and then after that, was that a process, or were you kind of able to tap back in after that to the Akash?
Yeah. So for me, it was like when healing the self trust is multiple layers deep. It was inner child. I spent a whole year, I think even more than a year, working on my inner child, healing the relationships I've had with myself and my mother. And again, like I always talk about this as being like peeling the onion. So the first layer, second layer, there's always so many
Mm-hmm.
layers deep to the same issue. And I remember working on it for a long time. And yet there's still more to uncover, right?
Yeah.
Because
Or
there's the
peeling the
past life.
lotus flower.
Yes, it's like it's so many layers deep, right? But you're getting deeper and deeper and deeper to the root of the issue, right? So I was healing my past lives. I was healing my inner child with my mother in the present life. I was healing all the other like different things, right? Working with my ego, healing the mental body, all of the things. And then when I finally said, yes, I am going to trust, and I went back to do the Akash. Um, it was I was determined. I was like, I'm determined to get my certificate, so I'm going to do whatever it takes to do it. And so yeah, and so then when for me the most important thing, like the aha moment, was when I decided that whatever information that comes through, I am not going to second guess it. I'm not going to rationalize it. It comes out, even if it makes no sense to me. I'm just going to say it.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I did that, um, I was like shocked and amazed because the other person receiving the information, and this was like I was just starting, I was just learning how to do this and how to give readings. Um, the person on the other him, on the other side was like, "Oh my gosh, this resonates so deeply with me."
Yeah.
And they were like, "How would you know that?" I'm like, "Oh my goodness." And so that
Yes.
was confirmation. And I love it because I think the universe, the guides, the Akash, right? They're always, or the keepers, the records keepers, will always meet us where we're at. And for me, that evidence was really important. And I felt like the universe was giving that evidence to me because the universe knows you need that. You need to see that evidence before you're able to believe.
Yeah.
And for me, it was like in that confirmation with these people, I have no idea who they are. And I would see things and say things that they were like, oh my gosh, yes, that happened. How do you know that? And I'm
Yes.
like, I don't know. It's always from the Akash. And that's how yeah. And that really helped. And then the longer I trust, the more I trust and lean into it. Um, just allowing the information to come in without second guessing myself, without thinking, how is that possible?
Mm-hmm.
Um, it became easier. Like things became easier in the sense like I was downloading information like more like naturally, like coming in all the time.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, and it's just like over time it's just become easier now. And so now
Yeah.
I create. programs in the Akash. I do healing in the Akash. I do like activations, attunements, and it's all led by the Akash. But that requires so much trust.
Yeah.
That requires so much trust in like that you are going to receive the information you need for you and for your client.
Yeah. And how did you start working with the dragons?
Oh, yeah. So the dragons came in one day, out of the blue. They came in out of the blue, like they made themselves known by their energy, and I was shocked. I was like, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" I did not allow. I was like, "No," because I was like, "I don't want you in my space." And dragons are permission based, so they're like angels, right? They won't come in and they won't work with you unless you say yes, I want to work with you. So unless you invite them in, and so a lot of people may see and feel dragons around them, but they may not feel like they may not have a connection with them because they haven't invited them in. So for
Oh,
me, I was like, okay, but I didn't know this energy. I worked with angels a lot and archangels a lot in my healing. So I was like, no, I work with angels. I'm the person who works with angels. I don't work with anything like, on any other spiritual beings. And I was like, mm. So then they came in and I said, no. Then they came in again, like to make their energy known again. And so the third time they did that, I was like, okay, this is interesting, but also like I asked, I reached out to my spiritual mentor. My spiritual mentor was like, if they're in your space, they really want you to make the connection. So I said to them, okay, bring me and show me a teacher who can help me. And then the next day, I was scrolling on Facebook. I saw someone who was just like, "Oh, I've just started channeling and started offering this new 5 element dragon fire Reiki modality, and this is all about using dragon medicine in Reiki." And
wow.
I was like, okay, this is the sign. And so that was how I reached out to learn more about the dragons. And it was the funniest thing because once I said yes, and I was like, once I reached out and I said, okay, I feel like dragons have been coming to me. And also they have been coming to me in for my clients. So I had a number of clients in the healing session, the dragons would show up in the Akash. And so I just assumed that the dragons are showing up for my clients. And I remember at one time I was like in the Akash, I was like, wow, I have a lot of clients who have dragon guides. And then in the Akash, the dragon said to me, we are here for you. And I was there, and they're like, we're not theirs, we are yours. We are
Oh,
here to help you heal. And I was like, heal your clients. And I was like, what? And so I started opening up to them more.
the guides
Um,
are all out there. We just have to offer permission for them to help. Just give them a job. And because
right.
sometimes
And
that just comes up with energy work. It's like you give us you delegate a little bit, and then yeah, like I've had people say like you were here and I felt you over here, like you're and there's some energy that's helping us.
yeah. And I felt for me it was more of like I didn't know much about the dragons. And my understanding of the dragons was obviously clouded by kind of like I would say like Hollywood depiction of dragons, right? And also, yeah, and so their energy was very different. Their energy felt a little, uh, I would say, for me, like I'm used to working with angel kind of energy.
Yeah.
Their energy felt different, and I wasn't sure of it. But once I started working with the Reiki teacher, um, and I started opening. So like it was almost like when I said yes, I would like to learn more about the dragons and channel their medicine. Then they came in full force
Yeah.
and basically told me right away, do I want to do an activation? I want you to bring an activation. And I remember thinking, I don't know how to do an activation. How would I know? I don't. And they showed me step by step how to do. So the very first activation I did with them was solar plexus activation with an orb that was with a golden dragon. And
Hmm.
so the golden dragon walked me through the steps of how I can offer this activation. And I was like, okay, I am going to do it. And I just remember that was my very first activation because I wanted to offer activations and attunements, but I just didn't know how. But
Yeah.
they showed me how. And so
Wow.
ever since that was my first one, I've been giving activations and doing it like, yeah. And that happened, I think, last year. Um,
Wow. So dragon medicine, what I'm getting is like this personal power and sovereignty, courage,
yes,
like speaking your
fear,
truth, like a lot of
fearless.
solar
Yes,
plexus and a lot of throat chakra.
yes, yeah. So the yes, dragons are really so. A lot of people are feeling dragon energy right now, which make a lot of sense. Not only just because this is the year of the dragon, in like yeah, not only because it's the year of the dragon, but also because dragons are here to help with like this the new earth, right? The ascension process, ushering in the golden age. And so they're really here to help plant the seeds. A lot of us, they're coming to a lot of healers, a lot of like, yeah, a lot of channelers, a lot of people who are kind of more mystics because they're really here to kind of like spread the message of like, we need to hurry up and we need to help ascend, Earth. And
Yeah.
that means a lot of us awakening to our spiritual gifts and stepping into our soul purpose, stepping into our power, becoming like, and you don't have like, when I say healers, I don't necessarily mean that healers like you have to offer a business or offer any kind of
Everyone
like,
is a healer.
exactly, that was what I
The
was gonna
the
say,
healer, using a word
everyone is a
healer to
healer.
describe somebody you're going to for like any type of transformation, it to me is a little triggering because I think that we are doing the work, all of us that come and decide to do the work, and there are facilitators and people that are allowing the transformation to happen, but like it's internally it's totally happening. And
Yes,
yeah.
yes, yeah. And so I always, when I say this healers, I always tell people everyone is a healer. All of
Yeah.
us are, but a lot of people may not associate because it took me a long time for me to even like say yes, I am a healer.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to even like walk this path because I had a lot. I had like a witch wound that I had to clear, persecution, fear of persecution, all of that things, right? And so that's why I tell people, that the dragons are here to really help us step more and embody our purpose to become beacons of light. So for all of us
Yes.
to become beacons of light, to express our soul purpose, our passion, and to help us with our personal power, and to kind of let go of fear. So
Mm-hmm.
fear and lack, because fear and lack is what keeping us down, the vibration down, keeping
Yeah.
us in competition mode
Yeah.
instead of collaboration.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's keeping us like taking advantage of other people instead
Yeah.
of uplifting and helping everyone. And
Yeah.
so it's helping us shift away from that fear based, survival, lack based energy into something that is more like uplifting, supportive, collaborative,
Yeah.
kind of energy, embracing like healing, love, compassion. And so that's why a lot of us are awakening to the dragons, and that's why the dragons are here.
I love
And
it.
so, yeah. So, yeah.
I'm really curious. We worked together after the retreat. We did an exchange, and you helped me to activate some dragon energy. And I did a session, maybe an activation for you. But you said you felt like it was activating your light language. And I was curious with all this dragon energy, this seems like a lot of throat chakra stuff. If you do toning, if you do light language, if that comes into your healing process or just personally.
Yeah, so I do light language. I don't speak it. I I see it. So I see it. I
Draw
use
it.
movement. So
Yeah.
for me, movement. So I would kind of like draw light language,
Oh.
and kind of like steal the energy. I see light language come in a lot, like in sacred geometry codes. And so I mostly do movements a lot with my hand style. Um, but I don't speak it as, I should say, I don't feel called to speak it except in certain situations,
Yeah.
where, and so a good example was, and this happened with a client session recently. I collaborate with other healers, and so the other healer was doing uh, kind of like um, um, so I was on the kind of like on the back as she was leading and doing the healing, and at that moment I felt called to bring in like light language, and
Yeah.
so I would say it and speak the light language, but the person is not here, like not hearing it, but it doesn't matter because in the space I am still
Yeah.
I mean, they're still receiving it energetically. And
Yeah.
so I have certain times I felt called to speak with light language, um, but not always.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Yeah, and just listening to where your data is coming through and where it's coming through the strongest. So I wanted to ask about, how people can get in touch with you, or like what might be coming up for you. So I think you have your regular offerings, and it sounds like you're rotating through a lot of things. So who knows what's going to be coming at the time of the recording, but want to hear more about what you're doing and offering.
Yeah. So I have my regular offerings, and that's a soul. Um, I call it the soul illumination journey, and that's through the Akashic records. And we do like past life regression, soul origin journeys, and that's like the healing journey. So it's like a 2 hour kind of journey that I take you in, the client through, and receive like guidance, insights, and healing. It's really, really empowering. It's also very like loving.
I love
That's one
it.
of my favorite journeys to do. And then I also work with dragons, and so I have like custom dragon healing activations, attunements. Those are really good for people who want to learn how to work with dragons,
Yeah.
because then I help facilitate the connection. But then they also receive like a gift, right? An activation attunement. And then I also have my regular kind of like mentorships for people who want to know more about dragons. They want to connect with the dragons. They want to learn how to work with dragons. They want to bring dragon medicine into their own like healing work, um, or into their lives. So that's a mentorship that I offer, to kind of like a school, I guess, to teach people how to work and channel dragon medicine. And
Yeah.
then I will be in the summer offering a 5 element dragon fire Reiki certificate, because I'm a teacher. And so I'm offering that to teach people how to channel dragon fire Reiki through the meridian systems. So this, you might be interested in that, Jordan.
Yes, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, through the meridian system, because the teacher I learned it from also does acupuncture. And so she blended acupuncture with dragon um, energy. And so we bring dragon fire. We work with 5 different elements of dragons, and we bring dragon fire through specific meridians like gallbladder, liver meridians, etc. So all of that fun stuff. And that's a certification process program that I'll be offering in the summer. And so
Wow.
definitely check out my website. I'm on Facebook a lot, and so I'm also on Instagram, but I'm mostly active on Facebook. And so definitely connect with me on Facebook. Um, I have different offers, different freebies, like soul code activations, a freebie that I offer. That's a guided meditation. I have multiple free guided meditations. So if you
Yes,
check
I
out
love
the
it.
website,
That's great.
yeah, you'll
And
be able to.
can we just get like a last little bit of um, advice on how people listening can connect more with their intuition, or maybe their fire, because we're talking about dragons, and
Yes,
the subtle
yes.
frequencies that that are moving through our planet. Like, how can people connect more with those?
I would say trust, and that's a big one,
Mm-hmm.
because we don't trust. Trust yourself, and that's another really, really big one, because everything you have, all the magic and all the medicine that you hold, is already within you, and
Yes. I
accessing
just
it,
got a chill.
tapping. What's that?
I got a chill from that. All the
Yeah,
medicine you hold is already within you.
yes, and so it is. Um, Yeah, I should write that. Write that down too.
Yes.
But all the medicine and all the magic that you hold is already within you, and accessing it and tapping it into it requires trust, trusting yourself and trusting the universe to have your back.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Thank you so much, Michelle. This has been so
Thank
much fun.
you. Thanks for having me.
Wow, that was such an inspiring conversation with Michelle. And I really latched on to what she said about trusting that that magic and the medicine is already within you. And if you take a moment to sit with that for a second, let it sink into every one of your cells, knowing that you are on an amazing spiritual journey and that the you that you are sitting with and exploring the parts of your soul is not the same you that you've started your journey with. And you're following this trajectory of finding more pockets of beauty and openness the more that you trust the process and spirit and the journey that you're on. So if you can, if you're in a place right now where you can close your eyes and drop into that, allowing the breath to nourish you and feed you, dropping in a space of beauty, of wisdom, of freedom, of trust. Allowing there to be places that are quiet, places that are blank without very clear answers, but allowing yourself to immerse in this beautiful dance of the stars. Feeling all of the wisdom of the constellations, the astrology, spiraling around you. And finding a space within that of allowing that beautiful star is going to come out behind the clouds at the very right moment to show you where you need to go on your path. And that you might not need to know every step of the way. You might not need a huge map of the entire solar system because you're not going to be traveling the whole thing. You just need a little trajectory. And so closing your eyes and imagining taking the next step and feeling into how that feels on the soil, the landscapes around you, the moon, the stars, where everything is aligning and collaborating for your ascension and your growth on this beautiful spiritual journey. And also trust and know that whatever guides, maybe they're dragons, maybe they're whales, maybe they're snakes and serpents, maybe they are mythical or extra dimensional creatures, but whatever those are, that they are ready and available for you to mobilize when you need it. So you might have a message come in about who you're supposed to work with, what guides, what angels, what light beings, who you're supposed to serve. You might have that information come into you. And it may be a slower journey of not exactly knowing, but feeling the hand of universal consciousness, of light, of God, whatever you want to call it. I think we should have a choose your own adventure for spiritual words, in that if something's triggering to you, don't take it on. Take on something else that feels more in alignment with you today, and that might not be who you are another day. So may you take these gems with you on your journey, knowing that you have this beautiful, brilliant light within you, and you can follow it. Talk to you soon.